Now that we've made improvements to some of the analytics, we can repeat the directed activity from Lesson 2 and see the improved results. In order to see a difference, we will need to restart the analytics service to clear the performance statistics and then let it run for a period of time. Most of our analytics in the course run every few minutes, so a 10-minute run period is enough to see some data, but if you have time, letting the system run for an hour will result in more interesting results. To reset the analytics service takes the following steps. First, launch the services application. Then find the PyAnalysis service. Right-click and select Restart to restart the service. This will reset the performance statistics inside the analytics scheduler and allow the calculations to rerun with the improvements we've made throughout the lab. Now I'm going to let my system run for an hour, and in an hour we'll come back and analyze the performance changes. Now that we've let our virtual machine run for a period of time, we can analyze the performance of our analytics with the new changes we've made. The first step to this is to launch PySystem Explorer and go to the Management tab. Then we'll right-click in the lower right and say View Analysis Service Statistics. We'll click Save. And we're going to call this Analysis Service Statistics _ after. And save. Then we'll go back into Windows PowerShell or relaunch it if you closed it. First step is to import our file for manipulation. So we'll copy the first line in our PowerShell and Excel content to copy.txt file from the C class folder. We'll add the _ after to our .txt file. The next step is to restore the relevant performance information into the variable eval summary. So we'll copy the next line in our text file, paste that into PowerShell, and execute it. Then we're going to export the relevant performance information to a new CSV file. So we'll copy the line in our text document, paste it into PowerShell, and we'll change the file name from anperfstats.csv to anperfstatsafter.csv. Then press return. Now we should have a file called anperfstatsafter.csv in our C class folder. This time, we want to use our previous Excel file and just add some new tabs. So from our C class folder, we'll open up anperfstats.xlsx. And if the activation wizard pops up, click Cancel again. And we'll click the plus to add a new tab. We'll call this anperfstatsafter. And in this case, we're going to import the file. We'll go to Data, From Text. We'll select our C class folder and select anperfstatsafter.csv and click Import. We'll choose Delimited and click Next. We'll uncheck Tab and check Comma. Click Next. and then finish. And then click OK to import into the worksheet. So here you should see our new performance information from our CSV file that we created in PowerShell. Next, we'll modify our data in Excel like we did before in Lesson 2. So the first step is to add a template column. So we'll insert a new column to the right of the display name column. We'll call this template. And we can copy the data for that out of our text file again. Paste it into the first cell, and then fill down. Next, we'll calculate the average triggering interval. So to the right of execution count, we'll create an average trigger column. And again, we can copy this from our text document and fill down. Then we create a weighting factor column to the right of that. And again, we can copy from our text file and fill down. Next, we'll create a new sheet or a new tab inside our workbook. And we'll call this pivot table after. Next, on our new sheet, from the Insert ribbon, we'll select Pivot Table. We'll select our new data for the data range. Then as before, we'll add our fields to the pivot table. So first we'll drag template to rows. Next we'll drag average ups to values. We're going to change this to an average using value field settings. We're going to drag max elapsed to values, and we'll change this to a maximum. We're going to drag average lag down, and change this to an average. We'll drag max lag down and change it to a max. We'll drag average trigger to values, and we'll change it to an average. And finally, our weighting factor. We'll change that to an average. Now we should have a pivot table like before. Now we can sum it by our weighting factor. So we'll select the drop down and say more sort options. We'll select descending by average of weighting factor. And then finally, we want to add conditional formatting just like before. So we'll select the weighting factor column. And from the home ribbon, select conditional formatting, then data bars, and select the gradient fill that you prefer. So now we should have our two pivot table displays. And this one, after we've made our changes, you can see the improvements that we made. The lifetime production analytic, which is not one of the ones we worked on, is much more expensive than it was before. But our high wind speed calculations, which was one of the worst before, is down to a 0.98 weighting factor as opposed to a 4.1 weighting factor before. Our loss power 30-day average was at 3.77 weighting factor before. And now it's down to 0.14 weighting factor. So because these weighting factors are somewhat relative, it's not the best indication of exactly how much our performance improvements worked on a particular analytic, but it is nice to see that where we focused our efforts is no longer the worst thing in our pivot table. The high wind speed calculations is always going to be an expensive calculation, but it's dramatically less expensive than it was before, and that's what we're going for. So if I was to look at this particular pivot table with a customer after we'd made these changes, I would then think we needed to go back and spend some time working on our lifetime production. Now you should be able to apply this analysis to your own asset analytics implementation. My hope is that this will be a useful tool for users of the Pi system when trying to improve their Pi system performance. If you do try this method on your own Pi system and are willing to share your results or at least feedback, please contact a representative of OSIsoft Delivery Services that you have worked with before, your OSIsoft account manager, or send me an email. We would love to see user results using this tool. Thanks for watching this training, and I hope it proves useful in helping to improve the performance of your asset analytics system.